I'm Jesper, I'm Danish. Mit svensk er inte så bra. Especially not when we're speaking about GDPR and security. So I want to make sure that we're completely clear on all the things that I'm saying. So if English is a problem along the way, please just raise your hand, ask questions, let me know if I'm going too fast or if I'm just not making sense. Good. Glad to see so many here after all. I was very surprised when I went out this morning. It was no snow in Copenhagen. It was very cold, but no snow. When I came to the bridge, the wind was coming in, snow was coming in, and I was just driving over and I was thinking about turning torso. And if anybody here has kids, you might have seen the movie Frozen, you know? I was constantly getting the picture of Elsa and her big frost tower. That's how I was thinking about this setup. Luckily, we are very warm and very safe in here. So it's not like Frozen and it's not a fairy tale. And what we're going to talk about today is definitely not fantasy or fiction. So I'm trying to I will try to make this as entertaining as I can, although it is a bit of it's a serious topic. It's something that many of you might be struggling with or think is quite the headache. I know many customers across the Nordic countries are really having a hard time preparing for the GDPR. I think it's due to many things, because it's a very rich piece of law. There's many pages. It's very difficult for us working with schools and pedagogies and didactic. It's very difficult to translate these difficult law texts. What does it actually mean for our everyday? I used to work in pedagogical IT myself in a municipality in Denmark, so I've been through some of this headache, and now we're facing the headache on the other side of the table. But I'm going to talk a little bit about why this is more than just a headache currently. So I think you all are pretty aware about the GDPR, what it means. But if you take the headlines, right, this is generally the most significant piece of data protection law that we've seen from the EU in 20 years. So the data protection directive that we're under right now, it's 20 years old. It's from 1995. So that's more than 20 years old. So it's quite a bit of time, right? If you look at that in data years, right? 20 years is about 100 human years, I guess. So it's a very long time to have a very old legislation. So in that sense, it is really good that we get an update of the data protection. Furthermore, it strengthens the individual rights to personal data, which is also great, right? So essentially, this is good for the individual user. It's difficult for us in this room who have to make sure that all the software and all the agreements are in order, but essentially this is much better for the user, because they get more options to delete their data, to export their data, to make sure that their data is handled in the right way. So essentially, while we might think this is a lot of work, this is very difficult to find all the ends and time together, essentially security is at the core of the GDPR. Sometimes we can forget this, because it's all about, you know, all the work that we need to do and how do we make this happen. But it's all about security at the end. And then one of the things that are really, really great about this is also the data transfer mechanisms. You know, transferring data from the EU to other parts of the world has become much more easy and actually sensible. So this has been one of the challenges previously, but it has become much easier with the GDPR. And then again, this also harmonizes EU law, because right now we're under a directive. So every single country in the EU can actually choose, you know, how to interpret the laws and only use it as a directional law. That's why we have different laws in France and Germany, Denmark, and it makes it very difficult for us as a cloud provider to navigate in. So essentially GDPR also makes it easier for us to make one setup that fits all. The new aspects, some of these you might know, especially the last one has really been out in the media, right? Fines are growing to humongous sizes. If cloud providers like Google do not make sure that the data is in compliance with the law, we can get fined up to 4% of our global annual revenue. that is a lot of money, needless to say. So of course this is in our greatest interest to be compliant. It also gives some very, very clear directions on what needs to happen and what are the rules about data deletion. So when customer asks, we want data deleted, there are some very, very concrete paragraphs about that. There's some very specific rules that data has to be deleted completely and also returned or exported if you want. There has to be very clear rules that users can always take their data with them when going out from one system to another. And this is the most important new pieces that we're going to cover today also. And what I can say is Google is committed to being compliant with the GDPR, of course. If we weren't committed to that, we wouldn't have a business in Europe at all. We wouldn't be able to provide all the million users that we have. So that out of the way, let's start the day with a quick quiz, because everybody loves a good quiz. Do anybody know who owns the data that's stored within G Suite? Everyone here?
We do.
Yes, you do. Schools, municipalities, all own your own data. Google doesn't own anything. Next one. And this is a bit more tricky, and it's a bit wide question, but what are core services? You're not allowed to answer too quickly. Anybody else know? Yep.
Sites, email, and Drive.
Exactly. You're on the exact right track. It's a set of services that we have that are what we call core services that are under special terms of service for education use. So we ensure in those 9, I think maybe we're up to 10 core services now.
12 even.
12? We're already at 12?
With Jamboard.
Fantastic. Great. We offer them special terms of services. So we say, in these core services, you will not see any form of advertising. Now I just ruined the third question. So let's just get that out of the way. You won't see any advertising. The data will not be used in any commercial way at all. And you have 24/7 support for these core services as well. So if you experience a problem with Drive, Gmail, Sites, one of those, you can call our support 24/7 or file a support ticket. Well done. Well done. So let's move on. When we speak about data and security, and especially data in the cloud, it makes it more easy for me to understand if we put it into what's the English word? Into a picture. About 100 years ago, everybody in this room, if we lived 100 years ago, would store money under the mattress, right? That was the safest place. Wouldn't give it to anybody else. We would stick it under our mattress, or we would dig a hole in our floor and put it under there. All of a sudden came banks who specialized in keeping money safe and also take care of it for the customers, for us. It's just about the same place we are right now with data. We used to think data is more secure on our own servers, in the basement, in our IT department, wherever it is. But that has essentially changed right now. Because we have big cloud providers, like Google for example, we specialize in keeping your data safe. This is all we do. This is all we've been doing since we started the company 18 years ago. We're born in the cloud as a company. Everything we make is for the cloud, and therefore we're super specialized. And this is the place where we are right now, right? It's a change of an era. Going from keeping our data ourselves because we believe that's most secure, to letting it over to somebody who does this every single day. It's also some of the things that Gartner has been doing some research on, that in 2020 we will see that at least 60%, there will be 60% fewer security issues with public clouds. Can we turn off the sound of this? Okay. And this is, of course, they have to put it like this, at least 60%. I believe that we can say that it's going to be much higher than 60%. Because it's what we do every day. We have more than 600 security engineers working around the clock, around the world, on keeping your data safe. So this is something that's just building building on this idea, right? So I think the next thing to talk about is how do we build trust with our users, with all the schools, with the parents, with everybody that we are in contact with every day, and how do we keep control and stay compliant? And these are, of course, these are different areas, right? Trust is one thing. This is about perception and how people think. Control is very technical. How do we actually control the data? And compliance, that's the legal part of it. So in terms of trust, I will just say you are not alone out there. When you use G Suite for education, you believe that our school is having some very singular problems right now. You do not. You're in the same boat as a lot of other schools and municipalities, especially here in Sweden, but also when you look at businesses. So I don't know how much you can see of this list back in the back, right? But we have some very significant businesses here that uses Google technology in one form or the other. So if we look at G Suite, the tools that, and they also have a pretty good reason for it, because we, as I said before, as a company, we're born in the cloud. This is what we've been doing all the time, been perfecting this for 20 years now, and we have 7 apps with more than 1 billion users. And we have a little asterisk close to the 7 because there's actually one app more that now have 1 billion users. Can anybody guess what that app is? It's one that many people have on their mobile phones. Calendar? It's a really good bet. Who's that photo? Yay! You got the prize. Exactly. It's Google Photos. It's Google Photos. So we now have 8 apps with more than 1 billion users. This requires a massive infrastructure and massive capacity to keep these apps running all the time. You probably don't experience much downtime in any of these apps, because that's one of the biggest focus areas that our security engineers have and our site reliability engineers have, keeping everything going no matter what happens. If we have an issue on our end, we need to take out some servers or we need to maintain a data center, you will not notice anything, because this is their job. This is what they do all the time. Make sure that everything keeps going, although some parts of the machinery is not going. So this is, I absolutely love this image. It's fantastic. I'm not an engineer myself, but it's there's something beautiful about this, right? We are actually, and this is fun fact number 1 for today. Google is, if you look at any day of the week, we're the 3rd or 4th biggest server manufacturer in the world. And we do not sell a single server. This is quite a remarkable fact because we build all the servers for ourselves. We want to make sure that we design and manufacture the server from end to end. Because if we just went out and bought a server, anybody else could go buy that server and they could reverse engineer it and figure out how the encryption works on it, which would essentially be a vulnerability. That's why we manufacture all the servers ourselves. So basically from the way bottom, from the servers onto the network, to the cables, to the protocols that we use, everything is manufactured by Google from end to end. So we essentially own the entire stack. All of the different pieces that is the design of a data center and how we store data is designed by Google and made by Google. And then we haven't even discussed and talked about how you actually get into a data center. I think there's about, I don't know, maybe 0.7 Googlers around the world who can actually access the first door of a data center. We all have these ID cards. I can tell you mine doesn't work to a data center. I will not even get close. So it's a very, very secure building, of course, in itself. And this is also a picture of, right, if you have a server in your IT department, in your city hall, that server is probably bought from somewhere, from a manufacturer that everybody else can do. You could essentially get access to an IT department or to a city hall and steal out a server rack, go home, decrypt it, and pick out the data that's in it. I can tell you this is not going to happen in a Google data center. The security is on a completely different level because this is all we do. This is our entire business. All our own operations, everybody in Google works on G Suite, all our own operations runs on the same servers as your data works. So it's very important for us to keep everything secure, both for your sake and for our own. The next fun fact. Google is the second largest cable manufacturer in the world, which is also quite remarkable because we produce all the cables ourselves. We also lay down the cable ourselves. So you see we have cables going across the oceans. They're buried down below the oceans, going all the way over, which secures that we have very, very fast transfer of data. In Europe alone, we have 6 data points. We have data centers in Finland, Belgium, Ireland, Netherlands. We also have now one in Germany, and one in London is coming up. So we have data sources all over the world. I think globally it's around 17 or 18 now. New is coming every day, so that's why I'm not entirely sure about the number. This is just to say, your data, no matter where you are in the world, you will have an access point to your data that can serve you the data very quickly. So whenever you open a Google Doc, right, it goes to a data center and, so to say, pick the data up for you and presents it to you. And that happens very fast because we have all these data points all across the world. And the thing to notice is that encryption is something that we have by default. So whenever your data is in transit, or if it's stored, it's encrypted all the time, going between data centers, going to you when you want to open a doc or a presentation or whatever. You can use our encryption keys, but you can actually, if you really want to, you can bring your own encryption keys. This is all something to note. This slide I just brought because everybody talks about encryption and it gets a bit fluffy and it's a bit, what does it actually mean, right? I know it's something about locking down data, but how does it work in reality? So this is just and this is a simple version. Just say, I'm not gonna go into the more complex one. So it says when data is uploaded to Google, just imagine this is a Google Doc. Start it out. I'm gonna do my lesson plan for math in the 4th grade. Start my doc. As soon as I do that, that doc is sharded into 100 little pieces. Every single piece is encrypted and then replicated between at least 3 data centers in different regions of the world. That happens every time. And every single of those 100 little pieces are encrypted with a unique encryption key. So that means no matter if it's owned by the same person, it's in the same server object, it doesn't matter at all. Those little pieces are encrypted with their own very unique encryption key. Whenever you update your document, that doc that you just written, all of those little shards of data that are copied in at least 3 places are then given a new unique encryption key. This is mind-blowing. The first time I heard it, I didn't really understand it, but because it's so complex and that happens in an instant. Because we've become so good at using artificial intelligence and machine learning in doing these processes. So I think this is a really fascinating piece, and at least for me, not being an engineer by trade, it really made me understand the complexity and what it would mean if a person should actually hack a document, right? Somebody should actually get a hold of your document. How could they ever access it, right? They need to pick all the shards that are located maybe on different servers, in different data centers, put them together, unencrypt all the different keys. It's an impossible job. Absolutely impossible. So this was the more technical part of it, right? This was how the mechanics work. This is more on the legal side, on the compliance side. We try to make it as easy as possible for you by undergoing third-party revisions, data revisions by, we have these globally acclaimed standards, ISO standards. We have these 2 reports, SOC 2 and 3, which you can obtain if you want to. SOC 3 report, this is public available, you can go and find that. SOC 2 you can request if you feel it's necessary and you want to have a look at it. Down below here is just a couple of examples of other organizations that are more similar to a public institution like a school or a commune. The UK government, they use GSuite internally when they work in their foreign ministry. So when they work abroad with a lot of countries, they do that a lot these years because they're not really that popular. They use GSuite for that. The same goes for the Nederlandse Bank. for all their sensitive banking data about accounts and customers, they use GJWuwH as well. So this is just to show a lot of people are relying on the security that we provide. This is just to come back to the GDPR. They call it the new gold standard because it's a way of making everything more, one-tracked. So it's easier for everybody. It's the same, right? It harmonizes the laws and it's more generally internet friendly. I like that phrase. It's basically more internet friendly because we use data in a completely different way than we did 10, 15 years ago. So it's much easier to do the transfers around the world. And one thing to get completely straight when we talk about compliance and legal, it is that you are the data controller, you own the data, we are only a data processor. So in the contracts in the data processing amendment that you have hopefully all signed with us, it states that we only act on instructions of the data controller, of you. So you only do what you instruct us to do. This is a blog post that we posted last year where you can read more about what we actually do in GDPR and how we are committed to stay compliant with the GDPR. This one is an actual cutout of the GDPR. This is Article 46. If anybody has read the GDPR and knows about it, this is a question that we get a lot. What about data? Doesn't it have to be in Europe? Doesn't it have to be stored in Europe? This is a perception that I hear. A lot of schools and a lot of municipalities think that's how it is. But in the GDPR it states that you can transfer data to a third country outside the EU as long as you have the appropriate safeguards in place. One of those is, for example, the EU-US Privacy Shield. That's one of them. If you comply with that, you can safely transfer data to the rest of the world. Another thing would be to have the model contract clauses that we have. These are clauses that are initially made by the EU that we have adopted and made a contract with you that is regarding that. Essentially the simple version is no matter where in the world that we store or process your data, it happens in accordance with EU law. That's the highlight of it. So we have 2 of these safeguards in place to make sure that international data transfers is just fine and in compliance with EU. So if anybody from your IT department says data has to stay in Europe, just reference Article 46, because this is the where it actually says it have to be in Europe. Last year we also had the good news that the EU data protection agencies from Ireland, from Hamburg, and from Spain, they gave the green light for our compliance with our data processing amendment, that it was in accordance with EU law. So we got a green light from the European data protection agencies as well. These are some resources that you can use. On the Google Cloud blog, you can read some of the blog posts. We also have our Google for Education Trust page. How many of you know this? No? Maybe I can just show it to you really quickly because this is a really good one to know. If you go to edu.google.sc/trust, it translates to English. Anyway, you will get to a page that is very teacher and parent friendly. It has all the most frequently asked questions about, does GJWuwH serve advertisements? Where is the data stored? All of these questions, right, that are super relevant, but it's actually a place where it's explained in a more simple way and where people can go in and read more about how is it actually with these questions. So I would definitely recommend you to go have a look at this yourself, and if you get questions from parents that you're not able to answer, redirect them to this page because it holds a lot of really good information about what I just discussed. All right, going back again. How are we doing on time?
Just like 10 more minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I know we've had some cancellations due to the snow, so I'm gonna spend a little more extra time. Hopefully it's not too boring. Hopefully you can use some of this, and also just ask questions along the way. So for the tools that we actually provide, we can only give you recommendations. Unfortunately, we cannot tell you how you should prepare for the GDPR. we can let you know that we do a lot of stuff on the back end, so you don't have to worry about that. But there are some of the processes that are very, very much up to you. This process is how you work with your teachers and how all the employees at the schools or municipality actually handles data. And you can do a lot from the admin side as well. So, for example, Google services are completely controlled per OU, that's organizational unit. So if you say, we don't want Gmail turned on for grades 1 to 5, for example, you can do that instantly, directly in the Google admin console. So that's something that you can control yourself. Other things that you can do is for head teachers or IT admins, people that have a little bit more access to different services. You can also turn on two-factor authentication. You can authenticate via a security key, like this one here. It's a USB. So you can just plug it into your computer, you write your password, and then it prompts you to say, please insert your security key to authenticate. You do that, and then you're logged in. You can also get it the old-fashioned way, either a prompt on your phone or get a code. The other thing is Google Vault. How many know Google Vault in here? Some? Not many?
No would be overstating it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm thinking most people need more education about Vault.
Yes, I agree. This is a very, very powerful tool that everybody has. It's completely free with G Suite for Education. And what it does, you can create rules to retain or to hold emails, documents, and essentially this creates a snapshot of everything that happens in your domain. So if you have a case with a student who have sent an email to another student, threatening, bullying them, done something that they cannot do, and they've afterwards deleted the email, tried to erase the tracks, you can go in and find them in Google Vault. You can find everything. You can see documents, presentations, emails, Hangouts chats, where history is turned on in the chats. There's a lot of things you can go in back in and see for legal purposes. And this is a very strong audit tool. So of course, if you go in as a super admin, if you want to search for something, that will also be registered, right? So everything will be registered because you're searching around in essentially sensitive data between documents. It's very, very powerful to have this turned on, and a place where you can always go back and find documents that are deleted or conversations that are inappropriate that you need for a case. And then we have some news, some really good news that we announced at just around bedtime, and that's that we're giving some more new security features in the free version of G Suite. So we have data loss prevention. I'll go more into detail in a second. Security key management, the ones that I just showed you, right? You can now manage them and you can enforce them on users. So you say all teachers must use a security key, or all admins can go in and select them by OU. They should use security keys. And then you have Gmail S/MIME encryption. DLP, this is a very, very powerful and very interesting feature. It essentially means that you can set up rules for scanning your documents and emails for sensitive data. So let's say if you want to make sure that social security numbers doesn't go outside the school or isn't being shared between students or teachers, you can set up a rule saying if you see 6 digits followed by a dash and then 4 digits, is that the same in Sweden? Yeah. Good. If you notice this in a document, and this is all automatic, of course, you cannot share those documents, or you cannot send that email. The user will simply get a pop-up saying, hey, you're about to share sensitive information. You cannot do that. And this also works on images, PDFs. So if you have those in your Google Drive, you've taken a photo of a social security card for a student, it will also OCR scan those documents and images to make sure that those cannot be shared either. So this is a very powerful tool and something that can help you to be sure that you are more compliant with GDPR. The difficult thing about GDPR is it doesn't state any technology in the law text, right? It doesn't state that you have to use encryption or DLP or whatever, but this is a tool that can help with some of the things that are stated in there. Security key management, I've already talked about this, how it works. Hosted as MIME for Gmail. This essentially means that you can bring your own encryption keys to Gmail. Of course, Gmail is already very secure, working through protocols like HTTPS, TLS, and SSL. So it's very safe already. This just adds an extra layer. If you want to bring the encryption keys, you can do that. If you receive an encrypted message from a person sending from an Exchange server, from Outlook, whatever, if you have the encryption key, you can decrypt in Gmail. So this is a new thing. Very good news, I think. There's been a lot of misconceptions about how secure is Gmail, because we've all worked in Outlook for many years, and there's a perception that this is safe email. Probably is safe, but now we have an extra reassurance that Gmail is just as safe. So the last thing, I promised I'll round up now, is that we also introduced a new product around BET. It wasn't a big announcement, but we introduced this new product called GJWuwH Enterprise for Education. It is a tricky name, I know, but it essentially means that this is an extra set of features from the GJWuwH Enterprise product, which is, as the name says, made for enterprises, made for businesses. We've had some very big customers in the US schools who say, we really want some of the very advanced features that are in GJWuwH Enterprise. But our product team hasn't been able to deliver it because we cannot make these free. They're very expensive to maintain. So they've said, sorry, cannot do that. And they've been doing that for about 1.5 years since it's been out. But then discussed back and forth and decided to actually launch a product where you could have those advanced features if you wanted to. So GJWuwH Enterprise for Education, this is an extra set of very advanced features for the customers who feel that they need them to some degree. It means for GJWuwH for Education, absolutely nothing. GJWuwH for Education has always been and will remain free. Nothing is going to change. We're going to keep updating that with a lot of new features. You know, the 3 security features that you saw before, those are for GJWuwH for Education. We have a big roadmap for all the product updates that are coming in 2018. I think Kim might have seen that at some point. They're all updates for GJWuwH for Education, the normal version that you're all on. So this is just something extra for the ones who think that they have more advanced needs. What it actually holds for features is more advanced controls for administrators, more advanced analytics that you can use, and then some enterprise-grade communication. So more features on Hangouts Meet, for example. The pricing, we're launching this in the US late March. We'll hopefully launch this in Europe before the summer holidays, so sometime end May, beginning of June. That's what we're aiming for right now. So this price, you would essentially just make that into euros. We have an introductory price when we start the product, which means that if you buy for all faculty and staff, it will cost you €2 per license per month, and then you'll get all the students for free. If you just want, 5 licenses for your IT admins, because they need to have these advanced analytics capabilities and access to the security center, you can just buy 4 licenses or 5 licenses, and then that's €4 per user per month. And that's how the pricing works. The features in itself, one of them is a security center. It gives you a much bigger overview of how your security situation is in your domain. So this is, of course, good for very large organizations. In the US, we have districts with more than 100,000 students. For them, this is very handy because you get an overview.
Over 300,000 even.
That is crazy. It's unbelievable how big they are. And for them, it's very good to have that, the grand overview of where are security vulnerabilities, where should we need to increase, do we have problems with passwords, whatever. That gives you the grand overview. The next thing is MDM, more advanced mobile device management. This is mainly focused for the places where you have bring your own device. So if you bring in different devices, you will have more, MDM features available for those devices. So it's not just Chromebooks, but you can also enroll iOS devices and PCs. Cloud Search. Anybody know Cloud Search? This is a product that goes across everything that we have essentially. So in Cloud Search you have the search bar, it says in the name, and you can search across everything. Documents, emails, calendar invites, everything. And it will also give you recommendations. So when I use Cloud Search, I have maybe 5 meetings in a day, and before every meeting it will give me a recommendation to, you might want to use these 2 documents in the meeting or for preparation, right? So it knows what you've essentially been working on previously when you've had similar meetings, and this might be relevant. Or you've worked with this person in the meeting with this, so this might be relevant for you. So it's a place to give you recommendation and so on. For the administrators, you have more advanced possibilities for getting Gmail logs and admin reports in BigQuery. BigQuery is a cloud platform product. It's a very advanced analytics product. So this is, again, if you come from a municipality where the politician was like a much more detailed view on how you actually handle the data or how you use the tools, this could be something for you. But again, this is very advanced analytics. And then the last piece is that you'll get more features in Hangouts Meet. So you can have meets with up to 50 persons in them. You have the ability to dial in to a call. We have Swedish numbers that you can dial into. And the last piece is that you can record the meetings, and they will be stored directly in your Google Drive.
This is the one people are crying about.
Yes, this is the one feature that people would really like, and it's very interesting. It has to be in the paid version because it's as you can imagine very expensive when people they record all their Hangouts and then they store everything in Drive. So although you have completely unlimited storage in Drive, but storage is not free for us. So that's the feature, and that's the feature set in general. If you think this is interesting, we have on our website we have some comparisons about what's in the normal version that everybody's on and what's in these extra set of features. What's the difference?
Jesper?
Yes?
The most interesting piece there is that you can buy just one license.
Yes.
That's not been portrayed very obviously before.
No.
As a super admin, that's the tools you want.
Yes.
And if you don't, you have to pay for one.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So
you definitely
make
can.
sure you give that out more focus.
Yes, we'll do that. So to be able to record a meeting, for example, you need to be on the G Suite Enterprise. So you can participate in one of those bigger meetings if you don't have the Enterprise version, but if you want to record, you have to be on the Enterprise version. That's about it. Any questions? Yes?
But the question we get from our lawyers
Mhm.
is that they're saying the whole time that the office for Google, it's in the States, it's in California, if the government or the authorities in the States ask for that information about our students in Sweden, Google in the States will give them that information because the GDPR law is not there.
No, so we also have laws in the US to prevent this from happening. So if a US government asks Google to give information, which is user information, we cannot just give that. We will say you will have to contact the customer because they are the data controller. You own the data.
But who owns the data? Is it the students themselves? Is it the admins for the domain? Is it the school itself?
Huvudmannen. Alltid huvudman.
Who's the huvudmannen? What's the translation? Do we have that?
The one signing the papers.
Yeah.
more or
Yeah.
less.
We have a paragraph or a section in the Google Admin Console where you put in your data protection officer, which is essentially the one bearing all the responsibility for the domain and also the person that will be contacted if we notice a security breach or a data breach.
Det är det som heter dataskyddsombud på svenska. Vi kan inte skriva, utbildningsnämnden kan vi inte skriva i formuläret. Utan vi måste skriva en människa där.
Mm.
Men det är nämnden som är ansvarig. Personuppgiftsansvarig är den som äger allting.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yep.
When will the 3 new features be implemented?
I cannot remember the. We have different tracks. I think it said within 5 or 6 weeks in the feature update.
Yeah, because they're still not in the calendar.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure. Anybody else?
Vi har mer tid för nätverking och ställa frågor lite senare så vi kan göra det mer privat.
Great. Thank you very much then.
Tack så mycket.